Amazing. I see people have joined. Welcome. We have an awesome panel on how to build a socially conscious community online. We'll get started in just a moment. But if you would like to put in the chat, let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm based in Austin, Texas, and we'll again get ready in a few moments and get started. But if you're traveling for the holidays, please let us know where you are traveling as well. And maybe what you're excited for today about this conversation. Again, we are going to be chatting about building a socially conscious community online. Thank you for coming to Planoly's Creator Clubhouse virtual events. We have a lot of cool things in store, and then we will have a live Q&A at the end in the last 10 minutes. So if you start thinking of any questions, feel free to add it to the Q&A feature at the bottom. And again, for those tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm based in Austin. And then we'll get ready in a few more minutes, let more people trickle in. New York, New York, awesome. Watching from Texas, love the Texas rep. LA, I'll be heading there tomorrow evening to see my family. So definitely ready for an LA Christmas holiday season. Awesome. Maryland. So exciting. I love that people from all over can virtually tune in for these conversations. New York. Ooh, Florida. That's going to be nice and sunny. Morocco. Wow. Welcome. We got different people in different time zones. Cool. We'll give a few more minutes. I see people are like slowly trickling in. Don't want make people to miss too much, but I can introduce myself. I'm Reza. I'm the brand marketing manager at Planoly, again, based in Austin, Texas. We are a social planning tool made for creators by creators. So if you're not familiar with Planoly and maybe you discovered us by these awesome speakers and creators and business owners, then thank you for joining. But if you are familiar with Planoly, welcome back. Nigeria, North Idaho. Wow, we have so many people from all over. Super great. Okay, well, I'm going to share a quick screen on my end. I would love to kind of get started now. And just so everyone's aware, we are recording. So in case you have to hop off later, feel free to watch our recording later. I'll be sending it out via email this week, and you can watch it via YouTube. And we will have a live Q&A at the end. So once you start thinking about those questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A feature at the bottom. Sweet. So let's get started, everyone. So we have an incredible lineup today of all these awesome speakers. We have Maya from Feminist, social editor. We have Anna Grace Millward, the CEO and co-founder of Stash Run, and Alyssa from Live Kindly. And of course, my name again is Reza. So I'm going to kick it off to each of the speakers to introduce themselves. Maya, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Maya. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently based in Fort Collins, Colorado. And yeah, my 9 to 5 is I run Social at Feminist, which is a women-owned media platform for women, girls, and gender-expansive people. We have an audience of over 6 million on Instagram alone, and my goal there is really to educate others on how social causes intersect and empower them to be able to take action in their daily lives. I love what I do, especially being able to center storytelling and really center the community.
Amazing, welcome. Maybe we'll have Anna Grace start next. You are muted.
There we go. I thought I clicked that button. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Grace, co-founder and CEO at StashRun. I also use she, her pronouns. I'm an entrepreneur, founded my first business at 17, but I don't get out of bed in the morning unless I'm working on a project that I think can have really significant impact. That's really what motivates me as an individual. I think we're super lucky to live in an age where younger generations are very motivated by causes, but the big question for us is, well, how can we take action? And so what I'm working on right now is essentially a fundraising and activism tool that we're building here in Silicon Valley. We've been in a private beta at schools like Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Austin, Texas, and UC Berkeley, so schools here in the United States, really building and testing. But what's special about the fundraising tool that we're developing is that it's a new way for people to take action in partnership with mission-aligned brands who actually fund the causes that their consumers care about. So a bit of innovation in the advocacy and fundraising space that we're leading here, predominantly with Gen Z and conscious creators.
Thank you. And last but not least, Alyssa.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm so excited to be on the panel with everyone here. I also use she, her pronouns. I am based in Austin, Texas, and my 9 to 5 is being the social media manager at Live Kindly, which is a sustainability and plant-based focused media platform. And then I also intern here at Planoly as the social media intern, just to get some experience in a little bit of a different field. I got started creating content just on my personal account, sharing about veganism and just lifestyle kind of content. And that led to, when I was in college, being able to intern and work at some socially conscious brands, and then eventually led me to combining my passion for sustainability and veganism to what I do today, working at Live Kindly.
Amazing. Thank you all for sharing. That was awesome. I am just shortly going to share everyone's handles in the chat. So those tuning in, you guys can take a look at the awesome work that they're doing. But yeah, let's get started. I would love to first understand from each of you, what does socially conscious mean? I feel like it can mean multiple things, and it doesn't have to be related to social media per se, but I would like to say maybe we can keep it along those lines, since right now we're talking about, building that community online. So maybe, Anna Grace, if you'd like to start, what does socially conscious mean to you?
Yeah, I think we've seen a big shift in how people interpret that phrase, socially conscious. From me, looking at it from more of a meta level, I'm seeing a shift in the consciousness of young people in terms of a generational shift. So I think socially conscious has really been coined around concepts of social impact or CSR or social responsibility. But that's really lived in this space of a nice to have, and often it's something that's commodified by businesses and brands. Whereas for younger generations, being socially conscious is really just an expression of their identity and their core beliefs. And this translates across the way that they share, the way that they shop, the way that they build and express their personality and profile. And so I think we're the most values-driven generations, millennials and Gen Z. And so social consciousness is very expansive and also just a core and fundamental part of our expression.
Yeah, that was beautifully said. And I do think it's evolving, and it's going to keep evolving, especially in the online space. So Maya, how about you? If you have anything to add on what that means to you, I'd love to listen.
Yeah, I think that's a great start, especially on a macro level. I was thinking, zooming in a little bit more. To me personally, it's about centering people and community, and that idea that, we're all connected, and thus our well-beings are as well. And as an individual, I think that means acknowledging biases and privilege and being compassionate with others online and offline. And then as an employee and a creator, I would say that it's about wanting to create spaces that make people feel like they truly belong.
And Alyssa, we'll have you go next.
Yeah, I think what you said, Maya, having people feel like they belong in a community is really important. And along with that, transparency, honesty, and inclusiveness, and just creating a space where followers feel like they can feel open to interacting with those really important social topics that maybe are even sometimes hard to talk about. And hopefully that evokes a positive change by having those interactions.
Definitely. And I feel like for all of you, you guys probably personally feel very strongly about being socially conscious in your everyday life, which then translated to the work that you're doing with Live Kindly and Feminist and Stash Run. So maybe we'll have you again. Alyssa, show us or tell us how you got to this kind of career path. Like what made you realize you wanted to navigate kind of like that socially conscious veganism? I know that's a lot of your content. What got you to this place?
Yeah, so I have been vegan for a little bit over 6 years, and since then it's kind of opened the door to me learning about like the environmental impact of animal agriculture, and then just more ways about how we can be environmentally friendly in our everyday lives. And then yeah, so when I started studying communications, it just like made sense naturally to me that I would want to learn how to effectively communicate these important topics for others that are also interested in those topics.
Yeah, definitely go take a look at her content, everyone. I added the socials in the chat. They're really fun, really, informational, and just really, I wish I could be a better content creator, and you inspire me, Alyssa. All of you guys are inspiring. So I'm glad to have this conversation today. Maya, how did you get to where you are as a social editor at Feminist? And also the amazing things you do. You like do a lot of other public speaking opportunities. You work with awesome brands. Your LinkedIn is amazing. I should also have linked your LinkedIn in the chat because I'm always taking a look at it. She shares amazing opportunities for people, young people specifically, to navigate, a more eco-friendly lifestyle through like grants and fellowships. So I'm going to pause there and let you take the limelight.
Thank you. Yeah, I started working as a freelancer in the digital advocacy space about 6-ish years ago when I was in high school. I joined a youth-led environmental project that was called Think Ocean and spent the next 2 years there as the Northwest Regional Coordinator. So I organized over 40 high school chapters across Washington, Oregon, and California. And then I was also a board member, so I helped formalize it as a nonprofit. And that experience really emboldened me as a young person who wanted to make an impact. And from there, I've just spent years within youth-led organizations for various causes: menstrual equity, environmental justice, gender equity, where I was able to hone my skills and interests. So I did a lot of different roles to kind of see where I really aligned. On the leadership teams of Gen Z Girl Gang, August, Lonely Whale, Intersectional Environmentalist, and now Feminist. And I think in terms of what got me started in all of this, I would say it's just my love for community service. I know like activism is a pretty big word nowadays, but I think at the core of that is just service. And that's what I always love to do for as long as I can remember. And then as I got older, just becoming more curious to understand what being Jewish and Chinese American meant to me. I think that continued to evolve the work that I've done. And Feminist is kind of the culmination of all the different causes I've been able to help advocate for in silos. And now Feminist is really just a great way to bridge them all.
Thank you so much for sharing. And Anna Grace, how did you start Stash Run? What was, the kind of like the idea that kicked off in your head that wanted to create this amazing, new platform? And yeah, we'll let you leave it to share.
Stash Run's really a culmination of all of the work and thinking that I've been doing at the intersection of, community service, activism, youth empowerment. As I said, I started my first company at 17. So all I've really known is, working on ideas and trying to bring them to life. But I've had a couple of different ventures along the way, whether they're nonprofits or like my last startup, for instance, was in AR/VR, and we were building out volumetric film and experiences to try and help build empathy and, you know, rich connection inside virtual environments. But I've always had this big question of like, how do we do this in a really scalable way? How do we create impact that can be lasting and that can reach people and communities all over the world? And so as an Aussie, I was fortunate to be able to come and speak about some of my projects at various conferences and do research at the United Nations, which kind of got me out of Australia into the US market. And I just spent a bit of time here in Silicon Valley and really realized just how strong the innovation culture was. But most importantly, that there was a real shift in people seeing commercial opportunity around impact, that, you know, impact, as I said earlier, isn't just a nice to have. It's actually at the core of the most valuable and powerful products that we're going to be building today and for the future. And so we were able to receive our first round of funding here in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, which was a massive win as a female founder as well. But really, I think in terms of how I came up with Stash Run, across all of the projects that I've worked on, I've seen that there's this really untapped human capital, like in terms of, you know, the power that younger generations wield. It's really their attention and their social influence. And so whilst spaces like philanthropy have traditionally been dominated by older and predominantly male generations, people who monopolize a lot of capital and wealth, I feel like that the most important kind of actors in terms of producing content or education are really young people. And so there was a big disconnect there. And I wanted to come up with a way that we could empower younger generations to make tangible, lasting change. And so Stash Run's really a new model around how we do that, bringing together those kind of financing actors along with everyday people and most importantly, creators who are really out there, you know, as Maya said, doing the community service, putting out the content, giving real-time responses to some of the world's most important issues and causes. And so trying to connect that with a funding source is really the motivator behind Stash Run.
I kind of love the synergy here. And I do like that, you know, community service is coming up a lot because I think a lot of people before social media, they forget that like activism looked a lot different than it does now. And it was really like people going out and, you know, helping out their communities, doing, you know, kind of community service in school. That's what I did in college and in high school. And I'm sure that's how it got introduced to a lot of folks. But now it's definitely, the landscape has changed and it's mostly online. It's like feminists, you know, they post a lot of awesome, great, you know, infographics and graphics and, you know, Live Kindly, they, you know, she creates lots of like reels, but also cool graphics as well. And I know Stash Run, you guys have, you know, really cool and kind of like conversations on campuses, both, you know, on your Instagram and your TikTok. So having these conversations and like building that is really great. So I'm gonna ask the next question. I think with so much noise and trends and information online, how can creators or just users, everyday social media users, maybe they don't create, but how did they take a step back to think before reposting something that's, you know, educational or powerful, but like just understanding more so like what is the concept of like, or the context of what they're posting. I feel like so many things just, you know, happen and we don't think before we act again. And maybe we don't know, maybe what we're posting is harmful or not harmful, or so forth. So maybe I'll leave it to you, Maya, to answer like how should people, what should they do to essentially understand the content that they're taking in, but also sharing online?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say it's about being clear and consistently going back to my values and just actively centering them. I think that can be really helpful. I also question a lot. I think it's really important to look at multiple sources and, you know, just question what biases a source may have. And then for me, I would say like a big thing is just asking myself consistently, you know, am I the right person to take up space and speak, or should I be listening and amplifying other people's voices? It's my opinion that you don't need to speak on everything, and often like it's better to pass the mic or uplift the people who really are at the heart of the cause and the people who, like, this is their lived experience. So yeah, I think to sum it up, I do a lot of social listening in my work and in my personal life, and that kind of informs the way that I take in content.
I love that you mentioned social listening. I always forget that is a really key point of, social media. It's just us listening and understanding. I'll leave it between Alyssa and Anna Grace to see if any of you guys had added comments of like what you personally do and what you think has helped. And maybe that could give advice of like how people can take a step back before just jumping into the noise and the trends.
I can go. I think on the note of social listening, it's really important as a creator and just like a consumer of social media in general to keep in mind when you're consuming social media, often algorithms are showing you maybe things you want to see, but it might not necessarily be the opinion of everyone. So it's really important to do extra research and really go out of your way to see what different viewpoints are on certain topics and not just take what you see on your feed as fact. So I guess to answer the question, with so much noise, I think Live Kindly is cool because we focus on positive stories, which kind of helps cut through like the negative noise on social media. But it's also important to think about what the viewer is going to take away from the content that you're sharing, not just like, oh, I want to share this content, or oh, I think it would be good to share about this, but like what are you wanting them to do? Like, will it inspire them to take positive action? Will it inspire them to share and spread awareness? Is it gonna, make them want to do something? So I think it's important to take a step back and think about if your content is like rage bait or clickbait, because yes, that might boost engagement and cause a lot of conversations, but it's not going to build a socially conscious community.
I agree. And I love that, aspect of like the rage bait and the clickbait. Clickbait is also just something that is in all landscapes, digital, blog aspects and social media, media in general. So yeah, definitely understanding like where you're getting your information and how the call to action of that information. Anna Grace, do you have anything else you'd like to add in terms of like what you would personally do or don't do?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's really important to balance trending as well as timeless content when it's cause-based. So really, being aware of what are kind of the core values that are tied into your personal brand that you're able to share or express through your content 365 days a year, whilst also being responsive to some of those more timely causes, which is definitely the harder side of it. I would just say on that piece in terms of responsiveness, I think it's not just about creating content of your own, but being deliberate in your curation of other people's content. So you don't always have to, be the voice. It's sometimes just about being thoughtful whether or not you want to amplify other voices that you feel are perhaps underrepresented or that you really want to center as important on your platform.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think this is all great. And I think this kind of leads into the next question is like, how do we empower users to then make that next step, that action that Alyssa was mentioning? Social listening, we're all online, we're all most likely, taking in so much content, but how do we understand where like how we could make a difference between that outside of social media as well? Like we could go back to the roots of just like community service and that service aspect and create actions in real time rather than online. But I think online, of course, is like the first stepping stone. So I guess for, you, Maya, how would you empower people, or even through feminists, like how do you think feminists would empower people through kind of taking that next step, both online and offline?
Yeah, I think that's, very much at the core of our values. Education is one of the avenues that we use. We really strive to make our content easily digestible, accessible, and actionable. So the content that we post usually has that call to action, like a petition you can sign, an org you can donate to, an event you can join. And that action piece is just helpful because you're not going to be able to fit an entire cause in a post. You're going to want to give your audience somewhere else they can look to start doing more research, because it can be hard for people to know where to go. And that's one of the main goals at Feminist. And then I think there are a lot of additional ways. Community guidelines, I think, is something that came to mind when we're thinking about empowering people. Safety is a huge deal, especially online. So those community guidelines, sometimes comment moderation can help. And then having representation, I think the more diverse your community is, the more people will feel included, which is important for empowerment. And then lastly, I was also thinking about just the avenues for collaboration and dialogue. We give our audience a lot of places where they can contribute to the conversation, or they can pitch us content, they can co-collaborate. And I think that's really important, especially as our community has grown, just making sure no one feels like they don't have a voice.
Yeah, I do love that. You know, a lot of your guys' content does show that call to action in terms of donations and, you know, events happening in your area. And then for those that are tuning in from so many different places, you know, I feel like a lot of the bigger cities possibly have, you know, these events that you can connect other with like-minded people that are socially conscious as well. So it can be hard to find that community. So that's why people resort to online, but maybe use this as an idea to start that community in real life in your own space in Arkansas, Maryland, North Idaho. So you guys could, you know, chat about it offline and try to make a difference in your own area. Alyssa or Anna Grace, do you have any kind of like ways you would empower users? Maybe we can start with you, Anna Grace.
Well, we're literally building an empowerment tool. So Stash Run is a call to action. The way that it works is by giving creators their own unique fundraising URL that they can embed inside any of their content, whether that's in your stories or your Instagram bio or Linktree, wherever you might be sharing a link with the community, it is a call to action. And the way that it works is by connecting your audience with brands who share their values and who ultimately want to fund donations. The experience, though, is really gamified and fun, and there's a lot of sharing tools built in so that your community can then share out those links as well and say, I'm taking action with Maya or with Alyssa or with Feminist. And it's just really about, you know, gamifying the attention and the social influence of Gen Z, and then putting brands in a position where it's more meaningful for them to connect with these audiences by actually empowering them to do something that they care about or to fund a cause that's really important to them. So really redirecting a lot of that money that would otherwise go into some pretty meaningless advertising. That's our mission as a company. And that's really like the opportunity or the problem space that we're addressing. I think a lot of action has to happen right now outside of these social posts. So there's a lot of, you know, attempts to bring people into other communities or onto other platforms. We haven't really seen a super easy and engaging way to integrate that into our existing social media. And that's such a missed opportunity because that's where people are most passionate. Like that's what creators are good at. You're storytellers, you're really inspiring and captivating your audience and motivating, riding that moment. And so we're looking to provide a tool that helps people to take action, not just on their own, but together as part of a community through your pages and your content.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of like take a step into Stash Run on my own. And like, I know it's at pre-launch right now, but do you guys have any like bigger goals that are coming out? Like, what does the timeline look like?
Yeah, so we'll be launching next year. We've been in a stealth beta right now, predominantly with college students, not just, you know, having them try the product, but actually building with them. We have offices on all our campuses and Gen Zers that work across every inch of what we're creating. We're looking to launch reasonably early in the new year. So that will be exciting. And we already are curating a really powerful community of creators to launch with, but specifically creators who do understand the importance of, you know, being conscious of causes or building communities around their values. That's really who we're building for. So we have a wait list as well that you can join on our website to sign up, and then we'll be releasing stash links to creators to go out to their audience to take action in the new year. And we've done some really great activations with existing pages, whether that's like Selena Gomez's Wondermine for mental health action, or Miriam Hart taking action to end human trafficking, or even just creators on campus who have really powerful audiences for Maui wildfires, or Indigenous rights and fundraising for student communities to have greater access in terms of resources. So some grassroots campaigns as well. So yeah, we'd love to have everyone involved in that, and definitely look out for us in the new year.
Exciting. Yeah, everyone, please take a look. I know we linked their accounts on the side, and I'm excited to see what's to come in the new year. Alyssa, going back to on that question, how would you empower people through your personal page and also Live Kindly to kind of like create that next step in action?
Yeah, I think something I like to keep in mind when creating content is meeting people where they're at, because I think a lot of times like becoming more like environmentally conscious or socially conscious can feel a bit daunting for someone that doesn't know a lot about it. So I try to think about like, how can I create content about like what people are wearing, what people are eating, what kind of like beauty products people use, like just kind of everyday things that maybe that average person doesn't think about, or even maybe someone that's like environmentally aware doesn't really think about. And just kind of like bringing those things up, because I feel like it's kind of a gateway into thinking about like bigger social issues and bigger environmental issues. Because maybe like something I share about is like popular beauty brands that still test on animals. So maybe if I share that information and prompt people to share like what their favorite cruelty-free brands are, then it creates conversation, and then it also is like a good, like I said, a gateway to people thinking about those kinds of issues.
I love that. And then I guess leading into kind of like the challenges and successes of creating this space online, and maybe like specific actions for users. I know, Maya, you mentioned community guidelines earlier. Maybe we can kind of round robin, and if there are things that you guys do on your own in terms of like your own accounts that you have personally, or the ones that you run. But like, are there any like specific, well, what are those challenges and successes look like? And for the challenges specifically, like, are there any specific, solution to that, I guess? So Maya, will have you start. Maybe we can lean into the community guidelines a little more.
Yeah. I think kind of reiterating what I said, like some of the challenges is like having harmful language or cyberbullying or just harassment, and then also not spreading misinformation, because you do have to balance like being part of the conversation when a social moment happens, but also being responsible in that moment, because like Alyssa mentioned, like there's a big difference between having a lot of engagement and building a socially conscious community, and feminist always prioritizes the community over the moment. So I think that's just an important value to go back to in addressing that challenge. And then having so many voices on one platform means that there will be differing opinions, and comment moderation isn't about like the differing opinions, but it is about hate speech and just language that's not appropriate and things you wouldn't say to someone in real life. So we don't want them popping up online either. Does that answer your question, or is there anything
Yeah,
else
no,
you want me to
that
dive
is
in with, like community guidelines? I think they're important to set and put. We have them on our website. We have them like as a pin post. We have them in communities that we aren't just like on Instagram, like in Geneva. There's like a different set of community guidelines, because that space is open to having more intimate dialogue, versus Instagram's not as, it's not an environment where dialogue is as easy. So the community guidelines kind of shift based on what social platform, but at the core, it's about respecting and valuing other people's opinions. And one like example also, if you're looking for like new perspectives, is this initiative called The Conversationalist. So their mission is to amplify various perspectives and break that echo chamber. So that's also a place to go if you feel like you're really stuck in your echo chamber based on maybe your algorithm, maybe something else, and you just don't know how to see both sides. That platform maybe could be a starting point.
I love that you mentioned the conversationalist. The founder is awesome. So definitely everyone go check it out. How about for you, Anna Grace or Alyssa, do you guys have any like of your own guidelines that you like to advocate on your page? And maybe it's just for you personally, maybe you don't have like it pinned at the top, but something you just like to, understand that you like to follow for your own posts. Maybe we can start with Alyssa. Oh, Anna Grace, you are on mute.
That's okay. I will mostly pass this to Alyssa. I'll just say that something I think is really interesting about where the internet is heading, especially in terms of Web3, is that there's so many great opportunities now for systems of reward versus just systems of punishment. I think a lot of social platforms, the OG platforms, they were really designed around this concept of punishing people for breaking community guidelines. And we haven't seen that working very well. Or we've even seen technology companies really struggling to apply that. But I think community-led moderation and also being able to elevate particular voices or opportunities, or having different ways to reward users, even if it's through your engagement, your interaction, and like who you kind of choose to engage with or call out. There are so many positive ways that creators can reward their communities rather than just thinking about regulation or even punishment. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and that's definitely something that we're keeping front of mind as we're designing StashRun as a platform.
That's amazing. And Alyssa, we'll have you go next.
Yeah, I think for Live Kindly, as far as like community guidelines and keeping it inclusive and welcoming is just making sure that people know it's a place to learn new things, and like you don't have to know everything about sustainability or veganism or being plant-based. It's a place to learn, and of course, like I moderate the comments as far as like people being respectful to each other, and there's trolls, of course, but I do find it interesting to like read negative pushback or even troll comments sometimes, because like instead of just dismissing it, I think it's good to really see that person's point of view and think like, why would they say this, and like how can that make me a better communicator in sharing about these topics in the future.
I actually like that you mentioned that, because I feel like user feedback, follower feedback can be both helpful and or harmful, depending on what it is. And in the helpful sense, it could be like calling out a brand for like, maybe they did something about like not tagging, their graphic designer as, giving them credit for something. And then people are like, they will go and show support in the comments. Unhelpful and harmful in terms of like, calling people names and like saying things that aren't relevant. So I feel like, kudos to anyone that runs a social media account, because you guys have to deal with a lot in terms of moderations and comments and hateful, hurtful language, but also, taking in any feedback. So I guess I really am glad that you mentioned that. But I know, Maya, you already mentioned the conversationalist, but I would love for Alyssa and Anna Grace to kind of mention any accounts or people you follow online that are great examples of like people that are creating this socially conscious, community that like inspire you. So if you have a few that you wanted to kind of shout out.
I just really love impact and environment as well as feminist. I would say across those three, that's usually what I'm checking in the mornings. What I love about them is the intersectional activism. I think they do such a great job of canvassing so many different causes, issues, and just real-time updates as well. That was one thing I was going to touch on earlier. It's like the response time is probably the most challenging thing for a lot of creators. And I think there's a lot of cancel culture too. If you wait too long, like silence is also painful for a lot of audiences as well. But like just the amount of work that can go into covering that many issues and topics and doing that at such a professional level to the point where, you know, younger generations have swapped that out for traditional news media sources is impressive and incredible, and definitely a reason why it's part of my daily consumption in terms of content.
I definitely love those accounts as well. What about you, Alyssa?
I think like nowadays being a social media manager and content creator, like you're almost a journalist in a way. Of course, like real journalism is very important and a lot different than what social media managers do. So definitely read credible articles from credible news sources. But it's our job to communicate those main ideas and important stories via social media. So that being said, I also really like environment and impact. And then I also am really liking, it's called Commons, but their handle is the.commons.earth. And it's an app where you can like track your carbon footprint and make more like sustainable choices, and it like rewards you for making like more sustainable choices as far as like what brands you choose and stuff like that. And then local here in Austin, if anyone from Texas is watching, I really like this creator. Her name is Shelby, and her tag is Shell Bisley. She posts about like how to be more sustainable and like connect with your community, like community gardens, and like speaking up at like community government or local government meetings and stuff like that. So those are my faves.
Those are awesome. I love all these people I'm recognizing. Like, this is great. And Maya, I know you already mentioned the conversationalist, but do you have any other accounts that, other than the feminists, of course, that you look up to and like you really are inspired by like how they articulate that socially conscious community?
Yeah. Some bias because I used to work there, but I always love intersectional environmentalists. They'll always have my heart. And then I like AP News in terms of like news sources. I think for feminists, since we're not a news platform, like we don't have journalists on the ground, it's important to acknowledge that. And also acknowledge that we usually shouldn't be the first person to make that breaking noise, like news because of it. But we do look at news sources that are inclusive, and then we pair that with the social listening, which I think is the role, part of our role.
I love that you acknowledge that. I know I feel like me too, Anna Grace, I'm looking at these accounts like first thing in the morning rather than, and then my partner looks at actual the New York Times like notifications. So that's the difference of us. But oh, were you gonna say something?
I just wanted to say as well, the reason why I mentioned those accounts too is because they do such awesome collaborations. I think they do a really good job at actually aggregating a lot of content from some of like the more individual creators that I follow, if that's like Queer Brown Vegan, or even if it's, I don't know, like smaller grassroots Gen Z nonprofits like One Up Action, like these kind of pages, I think, are creating content, but then it's getting picked up and filtered into some of these larger pages, which I love because it's almost a way to help me keep my eyes on some of those other pages that I don't have time to necessarily always curate in my feed.
Yeah, especially as a CEO and co-founder, you have a busy time. So it makes it a little bit more accessible. And that's what social media is about. It is about making what we view more accessible. We can understand so much more than, you know, generations before. So it can be scary, but also kind of exciting and nice to know that, you know, things are easy to read, learn, create, laugh, all of the above. I think we have time for one more question, and then I know we have 2 current questions in the Q&A. So I just wanted to pause and let people, as I ask this other question, the last one of today, before we head into the live Q&A. If you have any others and would like to ask our lovely speakers, please use the Q&A feature, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But in terms of speaking about online, being online, how do you guys stay authentic offline? Like, what do you guys do to navigate, the trenches of like, hate and trolls, and like, what do you do to just take time for yourself? I like to ask this question because I think we always discuss about what it's like to be online, but what about off? So maybe Alyssa, will have you start.
Yeah, so I guess a quick Planoly plug. I love scheduling content because that allows me to like take some time off when I need to. I guess, and beyond that, I like to make sure I'm not being a hypocrite and actually acting on the things that I'm passionate about and that I share about. So like volunteering at local community gardens, volunteering at an animal sanctuary, like and then of course like consuming social media, but not like of the topic that I work in every day. So like making sure that I have other curated spaces to kind of like one, social listen in a different way, but then also just kind of like have my me time on social media, not like work social media brain. But they do overlap a lot, of course.
It's hard to separate the two.
Yes.
What about you, Maya? How do you, enjoy your offline time?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that I try to keep the content calendar at least a week in advance, just in case anything comes up. And I think another part of that is just having teams that care about me as a person before an employee has been really vital, because it means that if I tell them I need to be offline, they take care of it. No, usually no questions asked. I think that's really important. Spending with time with my friends in real life obviously keeps me offline, and it's just really important. I've always personally thought it was really important to remember that like your life isn't online, like my work might be, but again, like community service, local, I think is something that I really prioritize in my personal life, that helps me stay offline. And then I'm not sure if this was like part of the question, but if there's like hate or something on like personal pages, this is something my friends could do for me, but this is also something I've done for friends, like individual creators, is if you're seeing like a lot of negativity on someone's page and they seem really overwhelmed, maybe just ask them like, hey, like, do you want me to log into your account? Maybe remove the DMs or the comments. I think that's one way you can be there for your friends. If they want to get offline, but they also feel like they have to monitor or something, you can take that off their plate.
That's so nice of you. That's something I never thought of, and I think that's really, it goes a long way for sure. How about you, Anna Grace?
I think it's what we do offline that makes us interesting online. And I think, I mean, I'm more on the technology side, the back end, rather than being at the forefront with my face on things at this point until we launch. But for me, it's just about like centering why we do anything, whether it's creating content or any of the kind of passions that we pursue in our life. We're doing it because we have an authentic connection with that particular thing. And so that comes through our real world experiences, our pursuit of knowledge, the listening that we do, and the real world connection and conversations that we have. And so I think like I wouldn't be motivated to do any of my work without having that real world authentic connection to that stuff. So I think doing that is super important because it comes across, or it translates to what we ultimately put out there in the world, whether it's a product, a piece of content, the types of partnerships we choose to pursue. It's all dictated by our real world experiences and values. And that's also what our communities and our friends love about us.
That's beautifully said, and I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for all of you. We aren't done quite yet, but we do have 4 questions that we could answer in just a moment. But I just wanted to say I love your sweater. I keep staring at it. I love the T-Rex. Super, super cute. And I also wanted to plug, if you are not familiar with Planoly, we do have a 7-day free trial. Again, I linked our website in the chat, but you can also, once the 7-day free trial is over, you can try out Planoly in our annual subscription for 30% off with code creator30, all lowercase. So definitely check it out. I think it does help with trying to stay offline. Like Alyssa had pointed out, we have a lot of tools to make your life easier, especially if you're a content creator. So you can auto post to all 7 channels. You could use our AI caption writer to help write your captions across all channels. I know that is time consuming and sometimes you just don't have the mental capacity to do it. And then we also give you awesome, weekly trends so you can look at, and you don't have to do the, social listening on your own. You can let us do it for you and send it your way. So a lot of awesome features to help with, keeping you more offline and keeping you more on track with your content strategy. So I'm going to stop sharing and then we'll head into some of these questions. So we have one on what kind of tools or strategies do you use to build and nurture your community online, and how do you get them and keep them engaged? We can open this up to whoever, but this is very interesting. Yeah, like how do you keep your users engaged? And then like, are there any tools and strategies each of you use to just like nurture this engagement?
I can go. I think like a tool, or like rather something that I keep in mind is like, is a piece of content shareable, but like, is it shareable in a way that is positive, first of all, and then like, is it going to be something that people are starting a conversation about? Like, when someone shares it to their story, why are they doing that? Like, are they evoking conversation within their own community? Are they getting other people's opinion? So just like making sure the content itself is clear and effective. And the nature of social media is like, people have short attention spans, me included. So just kind of having the first slide or the first 3 seconds get the attention of your target audience in an effective way.
Does anyone have anything else to add of like any tools or strategies on engagement?
I would just say that this plays a really important part in our product design. So we're not just building a fundraising tool to help people raise funds for causes. We're also building a tool that's creator driven. And what that means is that we're building in a backend, almost like a dashboard, so that you can see the way in which your users are engaging with your stash links or your fundraising links, or whether that's like around demographics, when, where, how, the sharing network, or even learning more insights into their values, like what are the causes that they care about, and the connection between particular parts of their social networks and specific values or causes. So that's something that we're working on right now. And I think like even, was it Mr. Beast that just released like an analytics platform for YouTube as well? There's this real push, like we see it in Linktree too, trying to look at the tools that we have, even existing tools, and how can we get better, more effective insights from them that we can then really use to help better curate our content or build a deeper, more meaningful connection with our audience. And so, yeah, I think there's a couple of examples out there right now, but we're really just at the cusp of this. Like, I think we're going to see a lot more of that in terms of giving creators back a lot more data and analytics as a kind of like reward or way to say thanks for engaging with specific tools over others.
Exciting. And I see one of our speakers, or one of our viewers, is very excited to see more of Stash Run as well. So got some fans in here. Maya, let me know if you have anything to add on that question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a large part of creating impact is showing up consistently and remembering that that impact evolves over time. During the 18 months I spent at Intersectional Environmentalist, our community grew organically by 83,000 people. I don't think we had a paid strategy actually. And we combined offline activations with those digital activations. So I think like that can be a good combination. And then I think like in this moment, collaborative posts are really powerful as a strategy to build an audience, particularly on Instagram. Because of the algorithm, there just is a lot of content that isn't being seen. And so not only when you collaborate are you gaining larger audiences by combining them, but you're also building community, and I think word of mouth is super powerful. So the more communities you can co-collaborate with, one, the stronger maybe the post could be on an educational like standpoint, but it also is just a great way to like build with others, which I think is always a great way to nurture and keep your community involved and engaged.
I agree. Thank you for sharing. And I think we have time for maybe one more. I'm going to combine the two because they kind of can be answered amongst us. So the first one is someone has a natural cosmetic product and nutritional supplements brand, and they're wondering how they can, what to do for social media, if they should prepare content with like advice and scientific information, or should they just stick with like photography and focus on only the product that they're presenting. That's the first one. And then the second one is kind of, again, a small business selling high-end product, and they wanted to kind of give back. So they're going to donate 10% to of their online sales to a monthly cause in social justice. So they're wondering how should they share, like what's the etiquette of sharing this nonprofit in their content, in their like IG, their stories, their feed. So both on content creation, both very important. So we can stick first with the first one, which is the scientific versus, photography based content.
Yeah, I can start. I would say step one is to figure out which channels you want to engage on. And what I mean by that is like X, Instagram, TikTok. It usually isn't strategic to build on all of them because the strategies are pretty different. So I would say, where is your audience? And then figure out the strategy that works based on that. In terms of specifically photography versus information and advice, I would say probably a mix. I think it's important to be intentional about what value you want to create. And for brands, I think it's really important to do that storytelling, help your audience understand, why you created this and what value them following your pages beyond understanding like deals that might come up with your brand. I think going back to like socially conscious, just demonstrating that expertise on the industry, the product can provide a lot of value. So I would say probably a combination and just center on what value you want to bring to your community.
Yeah, don't be afraid to think about it. I think a lot of people, they act a little bit fast in their content, but I think taking time to think and like really give that, all in your thought process is always needed. If anyone else has anything to add in that question or the other question in terms of like how they should promote the nonprofit in their content.
I can definitely speak to some of the business case in this for you, just around trends and 100% why, yes, you absolutely should center the impact that your brand has as part of your content, your branding, your entire brand identity, and the way that you build relationships with your customers. Essentially, at top level stats, so young people, specifically Gen Z, are 4 to 6 times more likely to purchase from brands that share their values. And in a recent survey I looked at, 80% said that they would pay up to 30% more for brands who share their values. So coupling that with some trends on the other side around like creators and how we connect or shop online, Gen Z is also saying that they trust and will ultimately purchase from people doing good. I think the quote was average people doing good, more than celebrities, more than governments, more than journalists. That's who they trust. And so moving into that kind of micro, even nano kind of influencer creator bracket is really important. And then finally, I think it's about longevity for both creators and for brands. You know, you can kind of get involved in these hot topic moments. Maybe there's something that goes viral, but if you want that customer loyalty, if you want people to do peer-to-peer referrals, then you really have to resonate with their values. And Gen Z believes that their shopping is actually an expression of their beliefs. And so when you come at it from that angle, I think as a founder, as someone who's building a product, all of that needs to inform your social strategy. So if you're thinking about putting impact at the center of your brand, you're absolutely on the right path. And I'll just say that it's nearly $30 billion that Fortune 500 companies will donate this year, but they'll spend about, I think it's 370 billion on digital marketing. So imagine if we could actually just integrate marketing into helping people take action on causes that they were passionate about, into consumer empowerment. That would be infinitely more powerful. And that's kind of what we're trying to do on the Stash Run side. But I think when you're creating and building your brand, you should put all of that at the core of your strategy.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I think hopefully that helps with that question. But I think definitely showcasing the amazing work that everyone's doing in each and everyone's like personal brand, but business is just great. I think that's, you know, authentic in a way. And it's just showing like, you know, all the awesome things that everyone's doing. I see Maya, you were answering some questions, so I appreciate you doing that. I know we're probably not going to get to the other two in the actual live. But I'm going to pause there real quick to see if Alyssa had anything else to add before we say thank you to everyone, but I'll pause.
I think Maya and Anna Grace answered that pretty well, but yeah, just focus on creating value with your posts. What does your ideal customer care about, and show them that you also care about that.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm so glad we got to have this awesome conversation with the three of you. We had some engaging, you know, questions, which is really great. Everyone I linked that is attending and watching, I linked everyone's handles of these speakers in the chat. So be sure to check them all out and follow them for more information on your journey later on. And then of course, don't forget, you know, to try out Planoly. You can try out our 7-day free trial, but also use code Creator30 for 30% off all annual subscriptions. So I just want to say thank you to all of you so much. I'm not going to get off quite yet because I see Maya still typing. I don't want anyone to lose that answer, so no rush. But thank you again for everyone for joining, Maya, Alyssa, Anna Grace. We are very appreciated, and I hope you have a wonderful, everyone have a wonderful holiday season and New Year. Amazing. Well, we'll head out, and thank you all for joining. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.